So you hear the word tariffs, and what comes to mind? Probably trade wars, right? Protecting local jobs. But what if I told you the biggest impact of a tariff has almost nothing to do with trade? That's what we're digging into today, this fascinating thing called the Tariff Paradox, where a tool that's supposed to help an industry can actually backfire in a huge way.
So, let's just get right to the heart of it with a big question. Are tariffs really just about trade? I mean, that's what we're always told, right? But the real answer? Oh, it's way more complicated and a lot more interesting.
See, the secret here isn't hidden in a shipping container or on a factory floor.
Nope.
To find it, you have to look at the very plumbing of the global economy. We're talking about the massive, invisible river of money flowing around the world every single second. The capital that literally decides what every currency is worth.
All right, so let's get into it. To really get what's going on, we have to look past the usual trade war headlines and see the bigger picture.
Because the real story here isn't really about counting cars or weighing steel. It's about one thing, the US dollar. You gotta remember, the dollar isn't just America's money. It's the currency of the world, the main reserve asset for pretty much everyone. And that changes everything.
Okay, so to really understand this paradox, we need to wrap our heads around something called the dollar cycle. Think of this as the engine room of the entire global economy.
So what is the dollar cycle? Well, picture it like a really long wave, usually lasting somewhere between 7 and 12 years, where the dollar's value goes up and then comes back down against other currencies. And it's not random. It's pushed by huge forces, things like interest rates and how well the US economy is doing. When things look good here, it just sucks in capital from all over the planet.
And trust me, the effects of this cycle are massive. When the dollar is strong, stuff we import gets cheaper, which is great for keeping inflation low. But when the dollar is weak, the opposite happens. Foreign goods get more expensive. This whole push and pull thing impacts everything, from what you pay at the pump to the price of that new phone you've been eyeing.
Okay, so here's the big question. How does a simple trade tool like a tariff get mixed up in this giant, powerful currency cycle? Well, it all comes down to a kind of chain reaction, an inflation chain reaction. Let's walk through it step by step.
Okay, check this out. It starts simple. Step 1, you slap on a tariff. That makes imported goods more expensive. Step 2, companies pass those higher costs onto you and me, so prices go up. That's inflation. Step 3, the Federal Reserve sees this inflation heating up, and what's their main tool? They keep interest rates higher to cool things down. And that leads to the final step. Those high US interest rates are like a giant magnet for money from all over the world, which floods in and boom, the dollar gets stronger.
Now here's a really important distinction. The Fed isn't going to freak out over a little one-time price spike. That's just noise. But when tariffs stick around for years, well, that creates a persistent rise in costs. It's structural. And that's the kind of long-term inflation that basically forces a central bank's hand, making them keep things tighter for longer. So all of this, it all leads us right here to the central puzzle of this whole thing, the strong dollar paradox. This is that classic situation where what a policy is supposed to do and what it actually does are two totally different things.
And here it is, plain and simple. A policy that's meant to protect domestic industries by taxing imports can actually end up hurting those exact same industries. How? By making this stuff they try to sell to the rest of the world way too expensive.
This really lays out the whole conflict, doesn't it? The goal of tariffs? Super simple. Boost manufacturing at home. But the unintended effect, thanks to that whole inflation chain reaction we just talked about, is a stronger dollar. And a strong dollar means that for anyone outside the US, our exports just got a price hike. It hurts our ability to compete. And this isn't just a story about the US economy. Because the dollar is the global currency, this whole paradox sends ripples out across the entire world. And it puts us at a crossroads, with a few very different possible futures ahead. So what do these ripples actually look like? Well, a strong dollar, juiced up by high US interest rates, basically squeezes the amount of money available worldwide. If you're an emerging market and you've borrowed in dollars, which tons of them do, this is a nightmare. Suddenly your debt costs way more to pay back. So what happens? Money flees those countries and rushes into the safety of the US, making the whole global financial system a lot more shaky.
And let's talk about that big goal, reindustrialization. The whole idea is to bring supply chains back home, right? But what often happens in reality is just relocation. The factory doesn't move back to the US. It just moves from China to maybe Vietnam or Mexico.
You still get all the inflationary costs of making that shift, but you don't actually get the big industrial boom you were hoping for.
So looking ahead, we're basically staring down 3 different paths. Scenario 1, the tariffs stick around. That probably means the dollar stays strong, and it acts like a brake on global growth. Scenario 2, tariffs get eased up. That could be a big boost for growth. But then there's the third path, and this is the one to worry about. Trade breaks up into separate competing zones. That would probably be the worst outcome for everyone in the long run.
So, when you pull it all together, you land on this one core idea. In a world where the US dollar is king, trade policy is monetary policy. It just is. Any big move you make on trade automatically becomes a move on money, whether you meant for it to or not.
It's a pretty powerful concept, right? When you take a step back, you can see how this one single policy, a tariff, sets off this whole chain reaction. We're talking about 5 distinct effects that all feed into each other.
So let's just recap the whole chain one last time. It starts with tariffs. Those tariffs raise prices, the higher prices influence the central bank's actions move global capital, and that flow of capital is what shapes currencies. See, it's a complete loop.
And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. The whole debate about tariffs is just so much bigger than one country's economy. In a system built on a global reserve currency, every single decision about trade sends out shockwaves, echoing way beyond borders and reshaping financial futures all around the world.